Can I also welcome Councillor Sharp following his recent by-election? Moving to items 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillors Allen, Leadham, David Nicholson, Veronica Nicholson, Councillors Tiplady and Reeve. Reeve, sorry. Is that right? Reeve, sorry. You're here, Rachel, I do apologise. Are there any more apologies? Sorry.
Moving on to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Have any members got any interest to declare on this meeting? There is no business required by statute to be done before any other business. Item 4, to approve the minutes of the meeting of Council held on the 29th of September 2022 as a correct record. Are there any questions on the agenda item 5? Councillor House.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, there are some questions relating to page 13 of the minutes. Item 55, the Merrill Development Corporation. Could I ask several questions actually, but initially, do we as a council have any veto for the Merrill Development Corporation?
Would you like me to answer that, Chair? My understanding is that the Mayor of the Tees Valley Combined Authority can apply to set up a Mayoral Development Corporation to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State then has to consult the statutory bodies. Hartlepool Borough Council is a statutory body, and if we don't agree to it or what's in it, we can veto it. That is my understanding.
So can I ask, when are we going to have the opportunity to actually discuss this in order to make that decision? Or has the decision already been made?
So there's a members' seminar on the 14th, which will have myself, officers from the Combined Authority in attendance to help explain a bit more about the MDC in detail. And I am hopeful that once we've got some things ironed out, we'll be able to be bringing a report through to Finance and Policy in December. That will be when, and then it will have to come to Council. However,
so
I
it does
believe,
actually have to come
it has
to
to
Council.
come to constitutionally. It will have to come to Council.
Right.
And however, I would also point out that I think the government's a little bit busy at the moment, and Hartlepool's mayoral development might not be the priority at this very moment. So the timetable may slip a bit.
Right. Can I also ask, on the same kind of line, is it correct that the council have a veto on the transfer of land? Or do we have that veto on the transfer of land to the Development Corporation?
So the only land that can transfer into a mayoral development corporation is public-owned land. So, for example, Homes England or Hartlepool Borough Council. The council has to agree what land or property will transfer in. So whilst I am currently working with officers on a list of things, at the moment there are a number of questions that we need answering that we will, once we've got that, be able to help members make a decision either way. At the moment, I haven't got all the answers that I would want to be able to provide members with a recommendation. So there's still a little bit more work to do, if that helps.
Within that as well, does Council have a veto on the transfer of the planning powers?
My understanding is if there is agreement that a mayoral development corporation would be set up, then planning powers would transfer. However, we are in negotiations as well regarding what powers that the mayoral development corporation would seek, and therefore we need to give members again our advice as to whether or not to do that. However, I am uncertain as to whether we can veto that at this current moment in time, and we're asking for independent legal advice on that.
Thanks, Denise. I also think that in the minutes it says that the vast majority of responses to the consultation were supportive. Do we have numbers as to how many responded to the consultation, how many were supportive, how many weren't?
That information was shared with all members following the last council. I haven't got it with me.
No,
I think
60?
it wasn't very high, I have to admit. But
It
of the
isn't very
responses,
high,
yeah. But
no.
I did share that information with all
Thank
members.
you. I just want to make a little point on the whole thing. I think I was certainly under the impression that we would get a big say in this Mayoral Development Corporation. It seems to me, from looking at things on media and whatever, that it seems to be a done deal in some people's eyes that this is actually going ahead. And we haven't yet been able to have our say. And I think it's getting a little bit late, and I appreciate that there's a lot of work to be done, but it just seems very late in the day to be doing the seminar, really. And I am very, very concerned that I was led to believe that we would have our say and that we are not actually getting our say. Thank you.
Councillor Brash.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just on the back of what Councillor Harrison has said, I'm happy to seek clarity from whoever would like to give it. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Managing Director who answers every question here. My understanding is, and I happen to be at a meeting that Mayor Houchin was speaking at with businesses quite recently, where he said, it's with the Secretary of State, we expect it to be agreed by Christmas, it's happening. Mayoral Development Corporation for Hartlepool will be set up. The power lies with the Mayor. It's been agreed by his Cabinet with the consent, by the admission of the Mayor, that our leader here consents and agrees to the Mayoral Development Corporation. That's what he said in the meeting. So it's happening. We don't have a veto on stopping the Mayoral Development Corporation. I accept the point about land we own. I think the legislation is less than clear about other publicly owned land. I find it fairly laughable that we're going to be able to tell the Homes and Communities Agency what to do with their land. I'm pretty certain that's not legal. And I'm also pretty certain that privately owned land, should it be advantageous to the private developer to have a planning application go through the Mayoral Development Company instead of through Hartlepool Borough Council, might be quite advantageous there. The danger we have here is we are on a slippery slope to an entity which could very well essentially be privately owned, but which has the ability to decide planning on large swathes of our town with no democratic accountability whatsoever.
Point of clarification, Chair, if I can. Did you seek to clarify that point with the Mayor on the day, or did you not ask any questions at that point?
No,
or
I was there to happily listen, and he was presenting to members of the business community. I have his slides. I'm very happy to share the slides and all the positive things about the completion date being Christmas and everything else. But the reality is, it's not for me turning up on a morning during half term and listening to a presentation to the business community. That's not the way a democratically elected councillor is supposed to find out whether our planning powers are being gutted by a Middlesbrough mayor. That's not the way I'm supposed to find out. The Secretary of State should not be agreeing.
Chair, is there a question on the minutes? Because I'm not hearing one at the moment.
I've asked for clarity on several points, but the reality is a decision has been taken by the combined authority, by the leader of this council, to set up something, and I found out that that's happening in a meeting to business by the elected mayor, and this body hasn't discussed it. The chair of planning sat right there. I wonder if he knows which planning powers he's set to lose over which parts of the town. The idea this is going to be set up by Christmas, and the first time we'll debate, we're not even debating in November, that's a members' seminar. It's not going to any decision-making body of this council until December, which is the date the Mayor of the Combined Authority has argued is when it will be
Okay,
agreed by the
Councillor
Secretary of State. That is not an acceptable position for democracy in this chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what's bravo. I think what is interesting is that it's no different to Teesside Development Corporation, and Labour were absolutely keen on that to happen, and that redeveloped the marina area. It took all the powers, and that was a Labour idea. So I think we're
Mr. Boddy.
brought
Councillor
forward by
Boddy.
Peter Mandelson, who was the person who brought it forward to Hartlepool.
Councillor Boddy.
So ultimately, we have a situation where nothing has been discussed yet. There was a workshop to bring forward the presentation. I'm in the same situation as most people in here. I don't know what powers and what have you been brought forward. We have got the members' seminar coming up, and I'm going to wait for that to get the information.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, and frankly, the leader of the Conservative Party in Hartlepool should be furious with the leader of this council. It has been discussed. It's been discussed by the Combined Authority and agreed by the Combined Authority. I can provide the slide from Mayor Houchin's presentation. Agreed. Combined Authority Cabinet, July 2022, and not one discussion in this chamber about it.
Councillor Faulkner.
Brian, you could stop this. This is about the minutes.
Very happy to say that it was during the recent half-term. Indeed, and the leader of the council was in attendance also.
Right. Moving on. Moving on to item 6.
Chair, can I ask what the question on the minutes was? Because that is the actual agenda item.
I'm very happy to say I seek clarity. Can we stop that mayoral development corporation being formed in Hartlepool as a body? Yes or no? Are you chairing the meeting, Shane?
This isn't part of the meeting, Councillor Brash.
I realise you're now taking the lead from the floor, but that's not what I was asked.
Councillor Brash, it's not part of the minutes. Moving on. Moving on to item 6, in the report of the monitoring officer presented by Hayley Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a proportionality review report. Following the recent by-elections, there's been a change in the political composition of the council, and in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government and Housing Act, the authority are under a legal duty to carry out a review, and this has resulted in the changes that are set out in section 3 of my report. The affected committees are Children's Services, Neighbourhood Services Committee and Audit and Governance Committee. For ease, Mr. Mayor, if I could just go through what are now, which councillors are now appointed to those committees. So, is somebody...
Sorry, I can't hear you. Can someone say
So, members, in relation to Children's Services, the Hartlepool People Group are entitled to one seat but have relinquished that seat to give to Councillor Cowie. So the coalition seats are Groves, Lindridge and Moore. Councillor Sharp has been nominated to both committees and will join on Children's Services Councillor Harrison and Body, and that completes the Children's Services Committee. In relation to Neighbourhood Services Committee, Councillor Little will come off and Councillor Cassidy, Moore and Cook will sit with Councillor Creevy Sharp, and Councillor Sharp has been, Creevy, Howson and Councillor Sharp will be added to that committee. And for the Hartlepool People Group, Councillor Jackson will retain that seat. In relation to the Audit and Governance Committee, Councillor Tiplady will come off the committee which will result in Councillor Cowie, Falconer, Lyons and Nicholson taking the 4 seats. The Labour seats will be Creevy, Feeney, Hall, and Councillor Allen will take the additional seat. Putting seat in first seat is with Councillor Smith, and the seat for Hartlepool People Group is with Councillor Cook. Members are asked to approve those and the recommendations set out at section 5. Thank you.
Councillor McCreevy.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Can I just double check the numbers of seats on the Audit and Governance Committee? Has that gone up now again then to 11? I've lost a bit.
No, sorry, that what it is a little bit confusing. It's the way that the calculation brings out the numbers with the decimals. It made it up to 11, but actually there's only 10 seats, and that's what we've, because Councillor Tiplady is coming off, that now balances at 10.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions on the report? Any further questions?
No dissent.
Is there any dissent on the recommendation of the report? If yes, we will go to the vote. No. There are no items at 7 or 8 or 9, so moving on to the agenda, item 10, which I will present as the Armed Forces Champion. Armed Forces Covenant progress in 2021-22. In 2012, Hartlepool Borough Council signed the North East Armed Forces Community Charter and established our own Armed Forces Community Covenant to encourage support from the Armed Forces community in our town. Our Community Covenant went on to be refreshed and re-signed in 2019, as part of which the position of Veterans Champions are created to support the activities of the Armed Forces Champion. Sorry. We are required to report progress annually in relation to the implementation of the Covenant, and in accordance with this requirement, details of progress, activity and achievements during 2021-22 are outlined in my report attached to the agenda for today's meeting. This Hartlepool 9th annual report and my first as Hartlepool Borough Council's Armed Forces Champion, I can say that over the last 9 years we have made great progress towards fulfilling our commitment to the Covenant, and 2021-22 has been a year like no other, with communities across Hartlepool facing unprecedented challenges in terms of their physical, emotional and financial well-being. Details this year's activities and achievements are outlined in my report, and as you can see, a considerable amount of work continues to be done within the financial and staffing resources available to us. I would like to thank all those involved across the local authority and our partners for their help in delivering our achievements. And going forward into 2022-23, we remain committed to supporting our armed forces, personnel and their families, and will be continuing to explore all possible opportunities to better identify our services, personnel and their needs, represent our armed forces community's needs on a local, regional and national basis, and develop our working relationship with Hartlepool Armed Forces Associations and military detachments situated within the town. I would like to thank you for your time and commend my report to the full council. Councillor.
This time last year when the report came, I asked the question what they were going to do about the one more in the sea. I asked if we could write to the Secretary of State and take over the land so we could put it back to its former glory and make it safe for the veterans that stood round there every Sunday, Remembrance Sunday, to make it safe for them. I was told that a letter would be written and we would take over the land so we could make it safe for those that wanted to use it. It was forgotten about. I'm going to put a reminder out to say, can we please, before the next Remembrance Sunday, take ownership of the land, make it safe for those who want to pay their respects on Sunday? Still to this day, we've had no reply and no word moving forward. So, saying that you're doing everything for the veterans of Hartlepool, have we forgotten about the Seaton veterans?
Councillor Smith, you're absolutely right, those things were raised. I don't think it was forgotten about. I think we've just had different priorities as a council, and I will take it on myself personally to get you an update and share it with the rest of council. And I apologise that this hasn't been done for this coming Remembrance Sunday.
Councillor Young.
On a slightly different note, my name tag's gone, no worries. On a slightly different note, I was at a coffee shop recently where a veteran had telephoned in some distress, and the local authority and various charities around the town took it upon themselves to support this gentleman who was in a great amount of need. And it was just to pass on a word of thanks to the council and those organisations for the work that they took part in to get this gentleman sorted out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Brash.
Chair. I just wanted to, first of all, thank you, Chair, for your work as the member champion in this area. And I think actually, because we've been debating it for a lot of the last 12 months, I would say this is pretty much the gold standard of what member champions are for. It gives an opportunity in this chamber and in other arenas for an incredibly important issue to be raised, debated and discussed, and indeed for councillors to raise their concerns if they think there are issues to go on. So can I first of all say thank you to you. Clearly the plight of our armed forces veterans is extraordinary, perhaps particularly at the moment, given the economic and financial crisis that we are suffering in terms of the cost of living. I can only imagine how much pain that's bringing to some of these people. So it's fantastic what you've done in terms of presenting this report tonight to give us something to hang a debate on. I think it's really important, and I would certainly encourage all the other member champions that we've now appointed for many other serious issues in our town to follow your lead and bring a report such as this so that it can be debated.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brash. There are no items at 11 or 12, so that items 13 hand over to the Managing Director, Denise McGuckin, for her business report 1 and 2, and report 3 has been labelled at the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Members, can I highlight a new business report that's been tabled this evening following clarification from Redcar Borough Council. So the first agenda item is in relation to the crustaceans and the referral from Economic Growth and Regeneration Committee on the 18th of October. And at that committee, there was a recommendation that Hartlepool Borough Council review its previous decision not to join a joint scrutiny committee. However, yesterday I received clarification from Redcar and Cleveland Council that they have decided not to go ahead with the joint committee but to set up an informal working group, and the details of which are set out on Business Report 3. The arrangements would be on an informal basis, with each Tees Valley authority being offered the opportunity to participate. It would be formed of officers and members from each participating authority. 3 members would be invited from Redcar and Cleveland, and they're set out in the report, with an expert officer to attend from Redcar and Cleveland Council and other authorities to determine their representatives. Once expressions of interest have been received, Redcar Council will administer the first meeting and any future meetings going forward. The first group, it would agree its terms of reference and other issues which are set out in section 7 of that report. My first question is for the Flora Council. Could you confirm if Hartlepool Borough Council is willing to participate in this joint working arrangement? Is there any dissent? If now that we have agreement to match what Redcar have actually put forward as their representatives, I would suggest it would be Councillor Cook as Chair of Audit and Governance, Councillor Young as Chair of the Economic Growth Forum, Regeneration Committee, the Scrutiny Manager, Joan, and also Councillor Creevy, who actually was the author of the original motion. And that matches what Redcar have done. So if members are happy to support that, we will write to Redcar Council tomorrow and let them know that we'll do that. Brian, people have got their hands up.
Councillor Moore. Sorry, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, more than happy to support that arrangement, and I'm finally pleased that Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council have clarified what they actually meant, because clearly what the original motion that went to Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council, Chair, didn't ask for what was being sold to the local residents in Hartlepool. What was being sold to local fishermen and local residents was that a joint scrutiny investigation was being set up that would uncover the truth and get to the bottom of what was going on. And as we made it very clear from the start, that wasn't possible given the scrutiny arrangements that we have at this council, which is why we said that we weren't able to do that. They weren't able to progress with that. And it was quite clear that from the original motion and from what was going on with officers and other members at Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council, there was a lot of confusion and ambiguity over what was actually being asked for, which is why Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council had to then set up a separate meeting last week to clarify the point, and I'm pleased they have now come back and clarified that they're exactly what they're asking for. We can engage with that. We can feed into that. It fits all of our scrutiny arrangements. There are no issues in there, and what it does is set the expectation correctly, Chair. We don't promise people something we can't deliver, which is a full investigation on that, which was never, ever going to be delivered. At least this is truthful, Chair, and we will be able to do that, and I hope we'll be able to push on with that. And if I can just add, I hope as well that as part of the joint lobbying and as part of everything else that we do as a borough council, we write to the DEFRA Minister and also the chair of the Environmental that's one, EFRA committee, thanking them for the work that they've done and thanking them for the recommendations, which are in line with exactly what we've been asking for over the past year. And we would write to the Minister as a council and ask her, or him, I'm not sure who they are these days, to go with those recommendations and proceed with a full independent scientific investigation, which is what is actually needed. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor McCreevy.
I know, I'm unique. First of all, I take issue with what Shane's just said, because I've got a copy of the motion in front of me from Redcar, which actually very clearly states the Tees Valley Local Authority should work together in expressing concern to central government and commission a new independent review report in light of the inconclusive evidence. In addition, the ongoing situation, would you like to let me speak? The ongoing situation should be monitored by a special scrutiny committee from each local authority. This is not an issue that should be a political football. We are all in this room to represent the residents of our town, and residents are immensely concerned, and we're very disappointed that this has come to this point. Many of us heard from Dr. Caldwell from Newcastle University at Economic Growth and Regen, and his testimony was devastating. If anyone wants to hear from him again, I can suggest that you have a listen to his testimony to the EFRA Parliamentary Committee last Tuesday. Dr. Caldwell told us about the impact on crabs from pyridine, which was bad enough, but also the impact on barnacles. This was a part of a 20-year study where the barnacles on a particular patch have been counted. This year, when they went to check, they only found one, and it was dead. In the past week or two, we've had reports of dead sprats in Greetham Creek, dead winkles found on beaches in the area, and last night I heard of 10% of caught lobsters are literally dying overnight in fish merchants' tanks. So let's stop scrapping and do this properly. We need to support the members of the public who shouldn't be needing to scratch around for fundraising to challenge what appears to be a flawed and rushed report from government agencies. We need to work with our neighbours across the region who've equally been affected by this. It's no good us working in silos. We need to share resources, knowledge and skills. This has been an extraordinary event, and we need an extraordinary response to it. And I'd like to request all the members within this room do their job and support local residents and our fishing industry.
Councillor Hargreaves.
Thank you, Chair. I think, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think it was Harold Wilson who said that in the first rule of hall, when you are in one, put down your spade. And what I would say, Shane, is that it was lovely to hear you spend 5 minutes justifying why you didn't support the original motion, which was to have a joint scrutiny. But I am delighted.
It never
I'll
asked
give
for
way,
a joint
Chair.
scrutiny
I'll give way for him,
investigation.
and then I'll come back when it's my go.
Members opposite have consistently stated that what was requested was for a joint scrutiny investigation. It is not. Yes, we all have them, but if that was the case, why did Redcar and Cleveland Borough Council have to set up a separate meeting to clarify what was actually intended?
May I continue, Chair?
Sorry?
May I continue?
You
Is that
can
okay?
continue.
Thank you. What I was saying was I am delighted now that we've had a bit of a U-turn and we've managed to talk to Redcar Cleveland to find a sort of little bit of a watered-down version. But nevertheless, this is an opportunity for all of those local authorities in the Tees Valley to come together and actually discover what the reason is for these events happening. Because, you know, beyond all of the politics in this chamber that, to be quite frank, most of the people out there don't give a damn about, there are a lot of people in here whose livelihoods are being affected. And I, for one, at the scrutiny at our economic and regeneration, it's probably not called that now, is it? Economic Growth and Regeneration Forum, Committee, whatever it is, was incredibly moved by Mr. Rennie's account, and it was a chronological account of the things that have happened to him, his family, to the other members of the fishing community, the other businesses in Hartlepool that have been badly affected. It was incredibly moving. There was way more information there in terms of anecdotal, in terms of the level of experience that Mr. Rennie and his colleagues have that they can bring to this investigation. I mean, it was incredible, as well as the information from the academics that were actually there. It was really enlightening, and I would encourage anybody to kind of get the minutes of that and bring themselves up to speed. But we must engage with this opportunity with full vigour in the way that Councillor Creevy said, and ensure that we get to the bottom of it so that it does not happen, so that we can help and support an industry that is, you know, predates generations of people in this room. You know, it's the thing, the fishing industry is the thing that Hartlepool is, you know, it brought us wealth. So we must do that. So please, I would implore us to work together to embrace this opportunity.
Councillor Young, did you?
Yeah, I think my point is that
Yes.
well, firstly, I'd like to second the suggestion or the motion to write a letter to the Select Committee. I think that makes complete sense. I think it's important to clarify that whatever is discussed at the joint meeting, informal meeting, it's not an investigation, as Councillor Hargreaves alluded to, will be fed back in the same way as we did economic growth and regeneration. That is the purpose of that meeting, as is stated in the business report. But I think it's also important to say that the economy at large, and Councillor Brash has alluded to this and Councillor Hargreaves has alluded to this, the economy at large is in dire straits at the moment. I was talking to a supplier the other day who was speaking to a particular food supplier, raw product, and the person was on the phone with them, and he was going to be negotiating prices on that particular product, and ended up talking the gentleman down off his barn roof. We are in really difficult circumstances across the whole economy, and we need to do more for all of those economies, including our fishing community. We need to be aware, as a council, as a body, as Tees Valley, that there's a lot more going on with our local small businesses, and we need to be there to support every part of the economy. Thank you.
Councillor Brash.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I'd certainly, obviously, those of us on this side are very happy to support this recommendation tonight. I just think we could have done without it. I mean, what I've heard from members opposite is dancing on the head of a pin. Scrutiny versus informal working group, formal versus not, this works, this. We know why Redcar had to change their offer, is because they were obstructed in their original ask. because we said no. We didn't say no, but no was the answer they got to their original request. So I'm really pleased. And the reason, let's be clear, and let's be absolutely honest about it, the reason why Redcar have persevered, the reason why we're now agreeing to an informal working group instead of a formal whatever investigation, it's the same thing, only tarted up a different way so you don't lose face, is because of these people over there. Because they don't give up. They don't be quiet. They're not prepared to take no for an answer, and they're putting the pressure on, and those opposite have yielded to that pressure. So let's forget the squirming over individual words. Why would you say no to a joint committee any more than you'd say no to a joint working group? What difference does it make? It's joint working on an issue that affects every single one of everyone up and down our coast. There are no boundaries in the sea. Why say no to the first? Why say no to the second? Stop dancing on the head of the pin. Get a grip and get on with it.
Councillor Young, Councillor Moore.
Mr. Chair, it's to clarify, and it's really important whether it's an investigation or a working group, because what has been sold to people, it's about setting expectations, Councillor Brash, and not lying to people. If you tell people there's going to be
Point of order.
If you tell people
Point of
there's
order,
going to
they
be an
heard straight away.
if you have to clarify every time you speak, then maybe
Point of
be
order, heard
careful
straight
about
away.
what you say
That's
in
the
the first
constitutional law.
place.
Point of orders have to be heard straight away.
Do they?
Article 4 on the way decisions are taken in good practice. I'm sure the reality is this. You can't call us a liar for suggesting that the original offer was about an investigation by a joint scrutiny committee when Redcar and Cleveland's minutes propose an independent investigation with a joint scrutiny. I mean, I know you love to shout people down. You're better. You try to do it a little. I know you do it a little bit more when women are talking. I've noticed. But there we go. But here's the reality. Don't accusing people of lying. We would have agreed to the joint scrutiny committee. We didn't get the choice. It wasn't brought here. It was refused behind closed doors. We will agree to this tonight because it's finally been brought here. Calling people liars for trying to stand up for our fishermen is political. It's the thing that Shane says he never is. A political football. Who's got it in the bingo tonight? His usual states, he doesn't like political footballs. Standing up here and having a pop at us because we keep saying, yes, let's work together. Yes, let's have a joint investigation. Yes. I've lost the point of order. I'm making a speech. It's good. Thank you, Chair. Again, well, I tell you what, point of order, the rules of debate say you go through the chair, so don't talk to me, Councillor Moore, talk to the chair. It's the politicking. It's trying to get out of a... The thing is, if you just come here tonight, members opposite said, do you know what? Should have said yes the first time. We just move on. But instead, it's the justification of the mistake. It's the U-turn. It's never the mistake that's the problem. It's the covering up that's the problem.
If I may carry on before I was interrupted, Chair. It's important to clarify what's on the table. Because when you are telling members of the public and you are telling fishermen who have been adversely affected by this that this joint investigation is going to get to the bottom of what happened, it's going to force out... Chair, I need to make progress, otherwise we're never going to get anywhere today. If you tell them that it's going to get to the bottom of what happened and it's going to find out the truth, then the point is...
Can I just raise a point here? Because we've been accused of lying twice tonight, and that is bang out of order. Absolutely out of order. So you need to clarify where you're coming from there, because no one has lied to members of the public.
Really?
You've done it twice
so
now.
You said the joint scrutiny investigation would uncover the truth. It could not, because it has no statutory scrutiny powers. You said that the joint scrutiny investigation would get to the bottom of what killed all of the crabs and lobsters. It will not, because it has no statutory... It's about, Chair, and the point I'm making, I'm more than happy for us to work with anybody, but it's about setting expectations. Do not tell people you're going to promise them the world and uncover the truth when that is not within your legal power. Be truthful, set the expectation so that when the inevitable happens and the investigation or scrutiny committee or working group meets, Whatever the outcome, there is not disappointment if it is not one way or the other. Set the expectation truthfully, and then we can all deal with it like adults. But don't tell people and don't promise people something that they're not going to get, and that's what I take umbrage with.
Councillor McCreevy. Sorry.
Okay, I'm actually really cross at the moment because I spoke to Shane about this over the phone several months ago, and Shane's first response was to be rude about Redcar and Cleveland Council. And I'm not going to repeat here what Shane's first response was, but that was before it was ever discussed with the scrutiny manager or anyone else, was that he wasn't going to get involved. So actually, I think you're being a bit disingenuous, and actually accusing us of lying is really out of order.
Councillor Hopkins.
I just want to be absolutely clear about what the Leader of the Council has just said. What he said is, in terms of our expectations, we should set them so low as to not expect, after a working party spends time and energy on something, that we will be no further forward about knowing what is causing it and what can be done. Is that what we've just said? We do not want to raise the bar and actually discover something that might be helpful to the fishing community. What we want to do is we want to spend a lot of time talking in a meeting and discover nothing. I mean, that would be the very definition of the point of uselessness.
For clarification, Chair, that isn't what I said. That's what Councillor Hargreaves said.
Right, we have to try and investigate, and whatever the word we want to use, but we have to spend time trying to get to the bottom of it. We have to. Otherwise, what is the bloody point of it? I'm sorry to swear, I do apologise.
Councillor Cook. Councillor Cook.
I thought I was invisible, Mr. Chairman. Can I stay seated, if I may, please? Can I just say, everybody's very passionate about this particular issue, not only because we are Hartlepool councillors, Hartlepool residents. We understand that it's the livelihood of the fishermen of this town. The problem that we've got is that we keep arguing amongst ourselves when at the end of the day we all want the same thing.
Exactly.
And that is the correct outcome. Can I just also ask for clarification, and I'll use the word clarification, that there is no such thing in our constitution or legally as a point of clarification?
Mr Mayor, yes, that is correct. It's a point of order and personal explanation that can be given.
So, thank you. I've heard it that many times tonight. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going daft as regards that. But please, everybody, let's just do the right thing, and that is do it in the proper way so that we get the right result. And Pam, you made a very good point there. What's the point of having a low bar? You need a high bar. If you have a low bar, you can't get any lower. If you have a high bar and you come down a bit, at least you're getting something out of it at the end of the day, which was something we all want for the fishermen of this town. Thank you, Chairman.
Move progress.
So, Chair, going back to my business report, I think we've made agreement that we will attend the informal working group, and the recommendations of the officers and members are set out in the report, and there was no dissent. What I omitted from my report, which I will share from everyone, is a copy of the outcome of the Select Committee to be shared with everyone, which was signed by all political parties and agreed. So at least nationally we've got agreement, as well as locally, hopefully moving forward. And I'll make sure that happens tomorrow. Moving on, the COVID update is part of one of the reports that is in front of members this evening. It's currently very difficult to give a clear indication of the number of COVID cases in Hartlepool due to the current lack of testing. The most appropriate indicators are therefore the hospital admissions and deaths, and we use these to give us an indication of the prevalence at this time. It is important to stress, however, COVID does not go away. We are currently at our 7-day case rate is 73 per 100,000, which is an increase of 50% on the rate of the last 2 weeks. And in October, 1 in 3 cases was a reinfection. Hartlepool's testing positivity rate is 11.4%, and this is up 3.2% from the beginning of October. And we currently average 200 PCR tests a week. Thankfully, I can report there have been no COVID deaths since August. However, COVID hospitalisations are up 59% on the previous week from 37 to 43. However, there is still a low number requiring ventilation. Vaccinations, over 80% of the population have had at least one dose, and Hartlepool Spring Booster uptake was around 75%, which is below the regional average of 80%. So I would still share caution with everyone and take care out there, especially as we enter the winter months. Regarding resignations from committees, sorry, Chair.
You certainly can.
Denise, the thing that concerns me is that we never seem to get, and I know it's very difficult, that the number of people who have what's termed as long COVID, and people that actually, you just said there's only one that you know of that's got COVID again. Well, I don't know whether that is actually the case, because nowadays, because of the way things are, people have a cold or the flu and they've got COVID or vice versa, because the test kits are only available to people that are vulnerable, otherwise you have to buy them. Now, to me, that is something that's totally wrong. Everybody, we all know about the squeeze and cost of living. It's something that I think should not be a chargeable item as people that are possibly poorly, that they have to pay £20 or whatever it is for a test kit. The other thing, if I may, Chair, on that, is ask the other question, and why is it that the rules seem to be changing on a regular basis as regards, and I'm only using this on the hospitalisation one, Denise, because I've been there quite a lot this last week. And in certain areas you have to wear a mask, in other areas you don't. So people are going in wearing a mask, walking out of a door and basically taking the mask off and things like that. I just can't understand the logic of why they say, when you're in this particular area, because the doors are always open, people are coming and going all the time. I don't know whether there's somebody you could ask at the NHS about that, if I may, Chair. Sorry, my apologies, if you could.
Thank you for that question. I wish I could give you the answers that you really want to hear. The difficulty is that you're right, that when people are ill with COVID, they don't have to test. So some people just think they've got a flu or a fever. So that's why it's really difficult to give members accurate figures, and we can only go off the hospitalisation data. I think tests are about £2.50 for 5 in Boots. So, but it's still relevant if you can't afford these things. So it is the current guidance from government that you don't have to wear masks. They encourage you in certain places, and hospitals would always encourage you to wear masks, but they can't enforce it. So that's why there's sometimes it feels really difficult. Whereas I go to Morrison's today, and there was people with masks and there was people without. So it's down to your own individual preference, I'm afraid, Bob.
Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question for the Managing Director. I noticed on previous reports there'd been a section on monkeypox, and I just wondered, is there an update on cases, and how is the vaccination programme progressing in the Tees Valley?
Numbers haven't increased from where we were. Thankfully, they were very extremely low, which is why we're reporting under 6, because the numbers were even lower than that. But we didn't want to say how many, because actually you can identify the individuals. I will get a report from the Director of Public Health to give you an update on that. But when I spoke to him recently, he said there hadn't been no change. But I'll ask about the vaccination rollout programme for you.
This is just another question for the Managing Director regarding the Council's protocol on communicating issues regarding COVID. I've noticed since I've been a councillor since May, we sometimes we share information and there's updates on our website or on social media before it's been communicated to councillors. Do we have a COVID communication protocol? And if we don't, would it be possible to obtain one so members receive the information first?
During the height of the COVID pandemic, yes, we did have one, and we used to inform members that have been prior to your time as a councillor, Melanie, on a regular basis. Because of the difficulty we've got regarding giving you accurate information, because people aren't testing, I cannot put information on the website because I have no idea how accurate it is. So, in the current climate, whilst you don't have to test, and government guidance is you don't have to test, all I can rely on is the hospital data. So that's why we've stopped putting it on our website. That's why we've stopped doing it. What we do is encourage people to get their vaccinations. So, for example, tomorrow at Mill House there's a vaccination clinic, and if you're over 50 or vulnerable, you will have received a letter. I know myself, I'm going there in the morning to get my 4th jab. So that's what we try and do to continue to promote it, but actually putting the figures in, I've got no comfort or confidence in what I'm telling you. I can only go from the hospitalisation figures.
So just to clarify, we do have a COVID communication policy or protocol. So if government guidance, because we're going into the winter months, if the government guidance did change, we would follow that protocol as the council.
Absolutely.
And members would be informed first before
So
it goes out
we
on
used
social
to do,
media.
right at the height, daily updates, and then it became weekly, and then
Yeah.
monthly, and then, you know, because obviously
Thank
that's how we
you.
managed it.
I appreciate
No.
that clarification.
Councillor Little.
Councillor Little.
Thank you, Chair. As a question I wanted to ask on the minutes, am I allowed to ask it? I know we've passed them, but
No.
basically
No.
it's just
No.
an update
No.
of if our MPs coming to our committees?
Too
No,
late.
it's
Too
not.
late. Moving, sorry, Chair, I haven't finished my report.
Oh, sorry.
So moving on to resignations from committees and outside bodies, I've been informed that Councillor Young wishes to resign from the Constitution Committee and also from a number of outside bodies, which are the Hartlepool Power Station Community Liaison Committee, North Tees and Hartlepool NHS Foundation Trust, and I understand Councillor Andrew Martin Wells has been nominated to replace Councillor Young on that foundation trust. There are also a list of other outstanding bodies on the report in front of members. Do we have any nominations from the floor?
Councillor Creevy.
Do you want me to make them all at once, or can I nominate Councillor Brash for the Hartlepool Power Station Community Liaison Committee? Blah, blah, blah. Can I nominate Councillor Sharp for the Schools Admissions Forum? And can I nominate Councillor Boddy for Tees Esk and Weir Valley NHS Trust? Please.
Are there any other nominations for those? No? I've received an additional resignation that Councillor Moore has advised he will resign from the Planning Committee, and I understand Councillor David Nicholson has been nominated by the group to replace him on that committee. That's for information. So there are still some vacancies for the Northern Consortium of Housing, Teesside International Consultative Committee and Teesmouth Field Centre, and we'll just carry them forward. Is it airport? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cook, for correcting me. That concludes my report, Chair.
Moving on, no public questions have been received at agenda item 14. Are there any questions on agenda item 15? Questions to the chairs about recent decisions of council committees and forums without notice under Council Procedure Rule 10.
Thank you. I forgot about that bit. I had to turn over the page. At last full council, I asked if we could write to our MP to invite her to all committees, not just to F&P. Have we had a reply?
So the MP has been written to attend all committees and full council, and as yet I have yet to receive a response.
Councillor.
Can we resend the letter then? Because I think it's utterly important that she comes to these meetings where we have to make awful decisions on our vulnerable adults and children of this town. I find that absolutely appalling that she hasn't got the dignity to write and look after Oh, sorry.
I will resend the letters, Chair.
There are 3 questions on item 15 as circulated.
So the questions, Councillor Harrison? Questions?
There are 3 questions under item 15 as circulated. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Can the Chair of Neighbourhood Services explain why the policy of charging disabled people to park is being pursued?
Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Chair. So the question was if I'm pursuing this policy, and the answer to that is no, I'm not pursuing it because there's nothing for me to pursue on this policy. It was already approved at full council in December 2021 and it was implemented in April of this year.
Councillor Clare.
Whilst I appreciate that it's already been before full council and it's been approved previously, I do feel that it needs to be looked at again. At the moment, we've got an absolutely ludicrous situation in the town centre, whereupon disabled motorists park in the disabled bays, walk from their car to the machine, press the button, get a free ticket, walk back to their car, put it on the windscreen, and then walk back to where the machine is to go in the shopping centre. It's ridiculous. But my main concern really relates to on-street parking. Now, I won't read the legislation out, but I will reference it. The legislation for charging for on-street parking bays is covered by the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984, sections 45 and 46. And a further piece of legislation, Local Authorities Traffic Orders, Exemptions for Disabled Persons 2000 states, an order to which this regulation applies shall include an exemption from each of the matters so prescribed in favour of a vehicle displaying the disabled person's badge in the relevant position. The key word in this legislation is shall, so please can the Chair of Neighbourhoods tell me why that the Council is breaking the law in charging disabled motorists to park in on-street parking bays?
Councillor.
Sorry, can I just declare a prejudicial interest?
Happy to answer that. So in relation to the payment for street parking, government guidance indicates that blue badge holders receive an exemption allowing them to park for up to 3 hours without payment. This is a guidance and not a legal obligation, and therefore is not something that the authority must comply with. A number of other local authorities have already introduced similar charging arrangements and others are considering it at this time.
Councillor Clare.
It's my understanding that it's not guidance, it's legislation, so I'd like to move that the Chief Solicitor looks into this and reports back to full council.
I'll second that.
Haley.
Sorry, just to confirm, so the Blue Badge Disabled Persons Parking Scheme was introduced in 1971 under Section 21 of the Chronically Sick and Disabled Persons Act, and that scheme, as I understand it, relates to sorry, you'll have to bear with me, I'm just picking it. Does that relates to on-street parking rather than council-owned car parks. So my understanding is that we can charge for parking on our council-owned land, but I'm happy to look at it further.
Sorry, yes, I perhaps wasn't clear. Charging within the car parks is absolutely allowable. I would argue that it's morally reprehensible, but it is allowable. It's the on-street bays that I'm referencing that we're charging for, and it's breaking the law. It's Whitby Street, Church Street. Most of them are around that area, but there are some at Seaton as well.
I'm happy to take that back and look into it further, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McCreevy. Oh. Okay. Next question. Councillor Houghton.
Okay, thank you, Chair. At full council in December 2021, the chair of the Neighbourhood Services Committee reported that work would be undertaken by officers to look at the potential of the online reporting system to give members and the public estimates of when work would be done. There was also a statement to the effect that greater education was needed around fly tipping and litter. Can we have an update on these actions, please?
So there's two questions in that statement. I'll start with the online reporting system. The online reporting system has been in place for councillors and the public to use for some time now, and recent training was provided for members this year in May. The system advises users of response times for certain inquiries submitted and lets the person know when their inquiry has been completed and closed. Therefore, I would encourage all members and residents to report issues via this system, as it helps to build up an intelligence picture with the appropriate council departments. As for the subject around fly tipping and litter, I think it is important to remember that it is not the council which dumps the fly tipping or drops the litter on our streets. And we work very hard to educate and prevent these incidents from happening. In the last 6 months alone, the council has issued 5 press releases as part of a successful media campaign on fly tipping to remind the public of the support, to address some of the myth-busting claims, and to remind the public that we need their support and their intelligence to eradicate this problem. We also support a number of individuals, voluntary groups, whose support is invaluable, as they help the council to keep the Hartlepool clean due to those irresponsible people who plague our streets with their antisocial behaviour. The council provide ongoing support to any individual group who seeks our assistance in the form of litter pickers, hoops, bags, and the council will then collect the waste from an agreed point. I think, Chair, this demonstrates the positive approach the council is taking in tackling this issue by closely working with partners and voluntary groups in addressing this problem in a proactive way.
Thank you.
Question 3, Councillor Harrison. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Just on the issue of fly tipping, it was interesting to see a few weeks ago that we were successful as an authority on getting a lady fined £2,000 for fly tipping. I know £2,000 doesn't sound a lot in that sense, but it is for a fly tipping issue, and I just hope that we do more of it.
I agree with you, Councillor. Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. A question was asked at March's full council meeting relating to women's safety in Hartlepool, and council sought assurances that work will be extended to support this. I'd just like to ask that a report describing the various initiatives, which I know are quite a lot, which have been put into place, be brought to an appropriate committee meeting. And is there any more that we can, as a council, can do to support the work which is going on and even add to it?
Councillor Moore.
Chair, sorry, forgive me, I can't seem to find my glasses. I've been all over this afternoon. Thanks. As you'll recall, Councillor Harrison, it was agreed at full council on the 24th of March that a report would be presented to the next Safe Hartlepool Partnership meeting on this subject, and I can confirm that that did happen, with a report being presented and held, and the meeting held on the 18th of July this year. If it helps, I can arrange for a copy of the report to be sent to you. The minutes themselves have only just been approved for Safe Hartlepool Partnership. You have to wait until the following meeting, which occurred on the 17th of October. So whilst they are available online to read now, they will also come to the next Finance and Policy meeting to be received. So if there's anything on there that you want to raise, if you raise it with us at Finance and Policy, we'll discuss it further.
Councillor Faulkner.
Yes, when I agree with the gentleman there. I've got 2 sons, and I would also like it extended to men. And I did ask for that when the original email came out and I didn't get a response.
They include men as well as women.
Councillor.
Sorry, I don't usually get very sexist, but I think in this particular instance, we were concentrating on the safety of women following such awful incidences that had happened nationally, Sarah Everard being one. And I think that we need to concentrate on that particular aspect in order to make sure that women feel safe. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be doing some work on men as well, but I think we need to just tunnel it into the one sex at the moment. Well, I'm not.
Councillor Bush.
Thanks, Chair. It's sometimes a little bit depressing that on the issue of women's safety, there's an argument in the chamber about actually, I think, and particularly calling the leader of the Labour group sexist, I think is a little bit too far.
Point of order.
On which part of the Constitution? It's good enough for you,
It
Shane.
wasn't an argument,
Sure.
Councillor Brash. It was just an observation.
Your observation was, I think you are being sexist. Is that correct?
Yes. I don't think she's being sexist.
That's an opinion, not an observation.
Oh, sorry. I do apologise. An opinion.
It's your opinion.
It is my opinion.
Right,
I think it's
my
an opinion of many.
opinion is I think calling the leader of the Labour group sexist is a bit far when she's putting forward a motion about the safety of women. Any reasonable look at the statistics on this issue presents a very clear case. And I think people need to be clear about this. 87% of 16 to 24-year-old women in this country will be sexually harassed during that period of their lives. I just want to hold that. 87%. 7% of women will be raped in their lifetime. Over 30% will be sexually assaulted in their lifetime. Anyone who thinks there is some kind of equivocation or comparator to be made to the male victims that exist, and of course they do, but anyone who thinks that there is any equivocation or equality on that issue seriously needs to look again. Councillor Harrison has made a very reasonable point, supported, I have to say, very fairly by the Leader of the Council, who's offered to continue and is continuing to support it. I think perhaps, in the spirit of being sensible, we should leave it there.
I agree. There are no questions under 15 and items 15, and there are no minutes of the meeting held by the Cleveland Police and Crime Panel to be noted. That concludes the meeting.